Canon's losing market share. They've lost 2.1% year over year, while Sony's gained 5% year over year. But take into account that 2.1% loss, and Sony has gained 7 percentage points to 27% versus Canon's 45.7%. Is Canon fighting back, or is Sony the new king? Details coming up, but first I encourage you to subscribe and choose all notifications so that way you can stay up to date on all the latest camera gear, news, and rumors. The recent collapse of Canon sales from Yodobashi over the last month have some thinking. Is it a result of negative feedback from Canon's decision to enforce their intellectual property? Others believe Canon's been playing catch-up to Sony for years when it comes to mirrorless full-frame cameras, as well as APS-C cameras, a market where Sony still dominates and where Canon has several missing holes in their lineup. But this video isn't about conjecture, it's not about speculation, it's about data, only instead of being from Yodobashi, a top Japanese retailer in Japan, it's about a North American company, or to be more specifically, it's about a United States company called LensRental.com, and we've got 20 of the top rented products for 2022. And 2022 was a rather interesting year. Things were pretty normal up until August, where Canon came down like a bag of wet hammers, using their legal team to say anybody who was producing third-party lenses with autofocus, you can't do this. You need our permission. So they were enforcing their intellectual property. And boy, has that angered an awful lot of people. So from about August onwards, we could see an impact in this data, this rental data from LensRental.com. So let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to list everything down the side here. We're going to look at the top 20 products rented through LensRental.com. And in the number one spot, I'm going to pause a little bit for a dramatic effect here. Take a wild guess. Who's in number one? You might, I know a lot of you are thinking it's got to be that Sony a7 IV. No, it's the Canon EOS R5, the top rented camera, the top rented anything from LensRental.com in 2022 is a camera that came out 2.5 years ago, and that's the Canon EOS R5. It was announced around, July the 9th, and started shipping on July the 30th. It's a camera I own. I bought it that very same day, so it's in the number one spot. And in the number two spot, we have another camera that was announced at the same time, and that's the Canon EOS R6 in second place, not the R6 Mark II. It hasn't been out long enough, but the R6 has been the second most rented, piece of photography or videography gear in 2022. Now in third place, we do have a Sony. And again, we're gonna go back to 2020. Take a wild guess at which camera this is going to be. Yeah, it's the Sony a7S III. It was announced also in July, but wasn't available for sale for about a month later, so the end of August, and the Sony a7S III is in third place. In fourth place, we have another camera body, and it's actually the Canon C70, a camera that sells for, what is it, $54.99? Yep, $54.99. Does DCI 4K up to 60 frames per second, does 4K 120, and I believe it does 180 frames per second in 2K, and of course has many other capabilities such as Canon Log 2 and Canon Log 3. Now the top four positions are owned by camera bodies, and this is where we see Canon dominating the top four, with three of the most popular cameras rented by Lens Rental are Canon cameras. Very different from what we're seeing from Yodobashi, but keep in mind, Yodobashi reports data every 2 weeks. What we're looking at here is a sample size, again, by a single entity, LensRental.com, but for the entire calendar year, shave off maybe a week or two at the end of December because, we're still here. December isn't over yet. In fifth place, we don't have a Canon, Sony, or even Nikon camera. We actually have a lens. It's a Canon RF lens, and it's the 70-200 f2.8 image stabilized lens, which is currently $200 off, but it's definitely not one of the most affordable. But if you're doing events, if you're doing weddings, it's one of those lenses where when it comes to sharpness from the center to the edges throughout the entire focal range, the focal ratio range, it's just one of those lenses that it's kind of hard to argue against. It's a really solid lens. And in sixth place, we have a Sony. It's Sony's version of the Canon RF 70-200. It's an f2.8 GM OSS. It's currently selling for $27.98, the same price as the Canon 70-200, if of course we ignore that sale, which will probably go on for a little while longer. I don't know if you've noticed, but right now we're seeing an awful lot of sales across Canon's lineup when it comes to lenses and camera bodies, but not so much for Sony. In seventh place, we have the Canon 24-70, but it's not an RF. It's an EF, and what you're going to see in this top 20 are some surprising SKUs, and this is one of them. The 24-70, it's an L series f2.8, and it's currently selling for $16.99. I wonder if the RF version is going to be in the lineup. We'll just have to wait and see. In 8th place, you're going to be surprised by this. See if you can guess the camera that's in 8th place. This isn't April the 1st. I checked my calendar. We're several months away from April the 1st. The camera in 8th place, it is a Canon, but it's a DSLR. Does that help? No, it's not a 1 series. It's the 5D Mark IV, a camera that was announced and started shipping in August of what, 2016? Yep, 2016. Still in demand, and the price of this thing, even though it's on sale right now currently, $22.99 for a DSLR, and it's in the number 8 spot. That's just truly incredible. This camera is still in demand. It's still available for sale, a DSLR here in 2022. In 9th place, we have a camera that's a little bit more modern. It's a camera that's based off the Sony a7S III, and if you guessed the FX3, you'd be correct. The FX3 is in 9th place, a camera that currently sells for about $38.99 or $38.99. Let me take a look here. Yeah, it's $38.99. That was made available for sale last February. A camera that I think is truly a pretty nice camera, but what's caught my attention a bit more, and I'm curious to see if it will show up on the list. I doubt it because we're looking at the entire calendar year, and the FX30 hasn't been out that long, but the FX30 for $17.98 I think is a terrific camera, a terrific bargain. It basically has all the same capabilities as the FX3, but we're dealing with an APS-C sensor instead of a full frame sensor. In 10th place, we have another Canon, but it's a holdover from the DSLR period. And no, it's not a body. That would be surprising, wouldn't it be? No, it's a lens. It's an EF lens, and it's the 70-200 version 3, I believe, image stabilized f2.8. It currently sells for $18.99. So what we're seeing is people using these cameras day in and day out, whether it be a Sony, Canon, whatnot. They're still looking at older cameras, and they're still doing the jobs well. People are still renting, 6-7-year-old cameras? They're renting lenses that are almost as old. DSLRs are far from dead. I'm still surprised to see the 5D in such a prominent position at position 8, not 18. And of course, we're seeing some EF lenses as well, but these are tried and true. Really shouldn't be a surprise. When we look at focal lengths such as 70-200, 24-70, these are pretty well go-to for event photographers, wedding photographers, where you can't get up close to have a wide open and fast aperture. I'm not really surprised to see these in the top 20. So if you're keeping score, Canon is right now ahead with 7 of 10 units in the top 20. That's camera bodies and lenses, both EF and RF, and both DSLRs and mirrorless cameras. Quite a mix in the top 10. But now as we take a look at the bottom 20, or the bottom 10 of the top 20, we can see once again a Sony, and this shouldn't be a surprise here. The Sony a7 IV is in 11th place. While this camera constantly topped the charts at Yodobashi in Japan, it's a little bit further down at 11th place, a camera that's been available for sale since December of last year. Well, towards the end of December, it's had a full year. The Sony a7 IV is a very popular camera with a lot of professionals and amateurs and hobbyists alike. Around $24.99, the same price as the Canon EOS R6, but definitely much further down on the list. And maybe that could be perhaps due to the 20 frames per second electronic versus on the Sony a7 IV having 10 frames per second, and of course, a slightly worse rolling shutter. In 12th place, we have the Canon RF 24-70. Remember, we talked about the EF version a little bit further up. Now, this is a little bit more expensive. Its current price is $23.99. But, you know, it's pretty much future-proof. It's an RF. It's on Canon's RF mount, so it's good for the R5, the R6, the R3. It's a very popular focal length. Whether you're buying Sony, Nikon, Canon, the 24-70, especially fast, wide open, and this one is f2.8, a really, really good lens. And in 13th place, we have the Sony version of that lens. We have the Sony FE 24-70 f2.8 GM, and it's priced at $16.98, so definitely more affordable to rent and purchase. In 14th place, we have the Sony FX6, a camera that's capable of 4K DCI up to 60 frames per second, then it can do UHD up to 120 or 240 frames per second in 1080. And at $6,000, it's definitely not the cheapest, but it's definitely a workhorse. A camera that if you purchase it today is going to be working hard for you day in and day out for many years to come. In 15th place, we have the Canon RF 28-70. I love this lens. It really takes advantage of the RF mount and the detail of cameras such as the Canon EOS R5. But at $3,099, it's definitely one of the most expensive lenses, one of the most expensive primes out there. I love the 50mm f1.2, and I can let you in on a secret. It's not in the top 20, but at $22.99, it seems, well, it's a whole lot cheaper. If you can afford this, and if you're shooting weddings and events and you want the lens that provides you with the sharpest possible detail, wide open and fast, it's hard not to fault this lens. It's an f2, not an f2.8, so it's wider, it's faster, but at $3,099, it's gonna be one of those lenses you're gonna have to use time and time again, and it doesn't go all the way to 200, so it might not give you that range that you need in a zoom, but wow, what a terrific lens. In 16th place, we have the Sony FX9 at $10,999. It's the most expensive camera we have on the list, and it doesn't even do 8K, but it does do 6K, and it does it very, very well. Again, if you're into this, if you're shooting day in and day out, you're shooting in a studio, I really can't fault the quality of Sony's cinema cameras. They do a really, really terrific job, and no surprises that this shows up in the top 20. In 17th place, we have a Sony, the a7 III, a camera that's been out for many years and was replaced by the a7 IV, but it's still in demand when it comes to rental. And in 17th place, we have a lens. It's the Sony FE70 to 200mm f2.8 GM OSS Mark II. In 19th place, we have the Red Komodo 6K. It's the only Red camera, and it's the only non-Canon and Sony in the top 20. Who's in 20th place? Can you guess? Sony or Canon? It's a Canon, and it's the RF 100 to 500mm f4.5 to f7.1. This guy right here, I gotta tell you, we all know it's expensive, but when it comes to shooting anything handheld, a super telephoto like this, I'm absolutely flabbergasted at how well it performs handheld. Holding it handheld, holding it steady against my body, I'm able to keep what is incredibly stable and smooth footage. Shooting video, not just stills, but video, it's a truly impressive lens. There are about 4 or 5 key observations we can take from lensrental.com, their top 20 rented products in 2022. Now, these are not sales figures, but what they show is demand for given products. And when people are willing to put their money on the line to rent, well, it's pretty clear that people are saying that, well, they like Sony and Canon. In fact, if we look at the top 10, we see 7 of the 10 cameras and lenses being Canon. Not just RF, but also EF, and not just mirrorless, but, well, DSLRs. That 5D Mark IV, really surprising it to see it there. And in the top 20, Canon has 10, half of the top 20 rented products. So there's still an awful lot of demand for Canon. And despite what we're seeing with Yodobashi, and despite what we're hearing, that there's a very vocal segment that's not happy about Canon coming down hard on third-party manufacturers of lenses that have autofocus built in. And I understand your frustration. I think the best thing to do, instead of just commenting in the comment section down below and voicing your frustration, and that does help, but have you bothered to reach out to Canon through their feedback, to Canon USA, Canon Canada, UK, all the different offices, and say, look, I've been purchasing blah, 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 your Canon gear, blah, 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 lens gear for the past X years. I'm really frustrated. I have actually switched. I am considering switching. Tell them your story. Be concise. Try not to be more than about 250 words, because when you go too long, sometimes people just skim. But if you're very succinct, fire that off to Canon, because what we've seen in the past is when they make decisions, if we're not happy about it in mass, well, what happens? Like the 24 frames per second, it does come back. It does make a difference. They do listen. And while I don't think they're going to reverse this, what it might help enable is to get approval for Sigma and Tamron a whole lot quicker than later. So definitely provide your feedback to Canon. What's really surprising to me personally is we're not seeing any Nikon gear in that top 20. No Nikon Z9, no Nikon Z6, no Nikon Z7, whether it be the Mark I or the Mark II. I'm really surprised. I'm surprised we're not seeing Nikon in there at all. The D850, the D6, the D5, nothing. And that's a big surprise. Nothing of Nikon in that top 20. We're definitely not seeing any Pentax. No surprises there. No surprise we're not seeing the OM1. No surprises that we're not seeing any, well, Lumix either. But still, yeah, that Canon and Sony are dominating with just a single red camera. That's really interesting, isn't it? And the other observation is that while Canon has dropped 2.1% market share from 2020 to 2021, where I think they had 48.7%, they're now down around 45.7%. But the big deal here is the progress that Sony's made. They've gained 7 percentage points from around 20% or 22% up to 27%. And of course, with that 2% loss by Canon, they've gained 7 points on Canon. It's really impressive, the progress that Sony has made. They're in second place solidly, unlike the previous year where they were very close to Nikon. Nikon has dropped to a distant third with 11.3% market share. I'm just absolutely surprised. And what I did earlier in anticipation of this video, I put out a poll. Let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers there, because what I asked was what camera you're currently shooting with today. And I know some of you are shooting with multiple cameras, but I do have limitations of this poll. One is I can only put in 5 different options, and you can't choose more than one. So let's do a quick refresh here, and let's take a look and see what the positioning is. And this will probably change by the time you've got ahead and watched this video. But from what I'm seeing, the percentages haven't changed a whole lot. OM Systems is dead last with 3%, Panasonic with 12%, Nikon with 11%, and that's really interesting. And I kind of listed the names in order that I thought they might show up. Sony is in 70%, and this is a surprise. Canon has 57%, and I think the main reason for this difference, I've done polls like this before, and I've seen myself get a lot closer to the actual market share numbers. But what I think this is showing is that I have more people who watch this channel that are Canon owners, and I think that's why we're seeing more people voting for Canon, because I don't believe that the worldwide market share for Canon cameras is 57%, especially when we have the actual data showing that Canon has 45.7% and Sony has 27%. But still, it's interesting because what it tells me is who you are. And not just you, but everybody who else is watching, telling me that my audience is, well, largely Canon at around 57%. And that's higher than I thought, much higher than I thought. But I have left out Fuji here. So if we put Fuji in here instead of OM Systems, we could see that number come down a little bit more because there are more people that own Fuji cameras. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why I didn't put Fuji there instead of OM Systems, or at least do an other. I should have done that, shouldn't I? I guess maybe it's my condition it's affected me. And I've had so many problems trying to record this video because it's been a relatively long video. I've been recording for how many minutes now? Oh my God, 30 minutes. Sorry, every now and then I have to pause for a bit of a coughing and a refresh. But I don't think at this point that the fallout from Canon's decision to enforce their intellectual property is having a huge impact on their market share. Nothing like sales completely dropping off. What I think we're seeing here is, yes, I think anywhere from around 1 to 5% of their market share could be affected by this. But I think what we're seeing with Yodobashi is, I've talked to a few viewers through the comment section, and what they've told me is, look, I've tried get an R7 or an R10 through Yodobashi, going to 4 or 5 different camera stores, and they're just completely sold out. So this sounds to be, I think this is a whole lot more plausible that Yodobashi's having trouble sourcing the cameras, and that's why we're not seeing Canon in the top 10 at Yodobashi. And because throughout most of the year, even after Canon made that decision back in August, September, October, November, we saw Canon cameras in the top 10, in the top 5, in some cases, Canon dominating with 7 cameras. And what I said at the time too is I think Sony might be having trouble getting enough A7 IVs and other cameras out. So I think what we're seeing at Yodobashi, even though it's happened for 2 consecutive sales periods for an entire 4 weeks, I don't think that's accurate to indicate that sales at Canon have completely crashed worldwide. What we're seeing at B&H and what I'm seeing from my own data, because whenever you guys use my links down below to purchase camera gear, excuse me, I just had another coughing fit. But whenever you use my links down below to purchase through B&H or Amazon.com, I get to see what those items are that are sold. I don't get any information about who purchased it, but I get to see. And what I'm seeing is the Canon EOS R6 is shipping. I'm seeing that the Sony a7 R5 is shipping, but I'm not seeing other cameras, and I am seeing the R7 and the R10. So they are coming in, but I think worldwide we're still seeing cameras like the R7, the R10 being constrained, and I think that's why we're seeing sales at Canon collapse. But I don't think Canon's in any trouble. What's really going to dictate how their market share performs in 2022 and 2023 is what cameras they bring to market here early on in 2023. Canon's looking at building out their APS-C line. We're going to see cameras that come in priced under the Canon EOS R10, such as the R50, the R100, or the R1000. At least one of those cameras is coming, maybe 2 or 3. We're also looking for a refresh of the Canon EOS RP and maybe another camera, the R8 or the R9, that sits between the Canon EOS RP successor and, of course, the Canon EOS R6 Mark II. And according to recent rumors, we're looking for a refresh of the Canon EOS R5 in the R5 Mark II. So if Canon hits out with half of those cameras in 2023, it should really help with their market share numbers, because right now a lot of people that own the R5 or are looking at buying the R5, such as myself, are considering, well, you know what, if the R5 Mark II is coming in the second quarter of 2023, well, I'm going to hold off. And the second quarter starts March. It could be March, April, or May, although I'm thinking most likely May, for a refresh of the Canon EOS R5 Mark II. That will be coming up to the 3-year mark, which is definitely within the range of refreshing the 5 series, which is generally between 3 and 5 years. And that will help Canon with the competition. That will help Canon at least maintain their market share and perhaps gain. But the question I have for you is, do you think that Canon's going to overcome this third-party lens debacle? Do you think that enough people are going to stay with Canon? Or do you think that they're going to lose between 1 to 5% market share? And when do you think we will actually get Sigma and Tamron lenses? Do you think it'll be in 2023, 2024, or 2025? And if you want to stay up to date on all the latest camera news and rumors from all the major camera brands, from all the major camera models, please hit that subscribe button, followed by choosing all notifications. By choosing all notifications, as soon as I publish a new video like this one here, well, you'll get notified by YouTube, so that way you'll stay up to date on the latest camera news and rumors. And if you're considering purchasing any of the cameras, lenses, bodies that I've mentioned in this video here, please use my general links down below for B&H and Amazon.com, because I get anywhere from 2 to 4% back, and that money goes directly into supporting this channel, to improving my lighting, to improving my gear. It's a constant upgrade process. So, and anybody who has used my links in 2022, thank you so much. It's much appreciated. And a happy new year to you as we approach 2023. Maybe I'll do a live stream on New Year's Eve. Let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like me to do that. To bring in the New Year's talking camera gear. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you again soon.